After announcing my pregnancy, my husband's sister tried to shame me in front of everyone, but her plan backfired, leading to her public humiliation and a painful divorce. When I found out I was pregnant, my world tilted in the best way. After 3 years of trying, crying through negative tests, and fertility treatments that drained us emotionally and financially, that faint pink line on the stick felt like a miracle. My husband Matt was over the moon when I told him. He picked me up and spun me around in our kitchen, both of us laughing and crying at once. We knew we wanted to share the news with our families soon, and Matt had a brilliant idea to announce it at his birthday party, which was just a week away. It was going to be a big backyard gathering with close friends and family, complete with fairy lights, music, and his favorite foods. I spent days planning it, wanting everything to be perfect. But I had this nagging feeling in the pit of my stomach, because Matt's sister, Courtney, had always been a thorn in my side. Ever since Matt and I got married, she made passive-aggressive comments, questioned my intentions, and gave me icy stares whenever Matt wasn't looking. She was one of those people who had to be the center of attention, and I knew she'd hate not being in the spotlight. Still, I hoped the pregnancy news would soften her a little, maybe give her a reason to be happy for us, even if just for a moment. I wasn't naive, just hopeful. I told Matt about my concerns, and he reassured me like he always does. "Don't worry about Courtney," he said, wrapping his arms around me. "This party is about celebrating two amazing things, my birthday and our baby." I nodded, trying to believe him. I had no idea that Courtney had something entirely different in mind for that night, something petty, cruel, and so far out of line it would not only ruin her night, but her entire marriage. The day of the party arrived, and everything was going smoothly. Guests began to trickle in as the sun started its descent, casting a golden glow over the yard. Laughter and music floated through the air, and I was surrounded by people who genuinely seemed happy for us. Matt was glowing, greeting everyone like a proud father-to-be, while I tried to stay hydrated and rested in between conversations. I wore a soft, flowing dress that skimmed over the tiny bump I was already beginning to show. It was early, but I was glowing, and I knew it. Around 7 p.m., we decided it was time to share the big news. Matt clinked his glass and called for attention, his eyes scanning the crowd until they found mine. I stood beside him, holding his hand as he said, "Thank you all for being here to celebrate with me tonight. I've got a birthday wish that already came true, and we want to share it with all of you." He turned to me, gave my hand a squeeze, and I announced, "We're having a baby." The yard erupted in cheers and clapping. People rushed over to hug us, and for a moment, everything felt magical. I caught a glimpse of Courtney standing at the back near the drinks table, her arms folded and a tight smile on her face. She didn't clap, didn't move. Her husband, Dan, stood awkwardly beside her, clearly unsure of what to do. I tried to brush it off, but something about her expression made my skin crawl. As the evening wore on, people danced, laughed, and congratulated us. But Courtney disappeared for nearly half an hour, and when she returned, something had changed. She was smiling too much, walking too confidently. I didn't know it yet, but she'd set something in motion, a plan she thought would ruin me in front of everyone I loved, and she had no idea just how badly it would backfire. It started subtly. Someone bumped into me and spilled a drink down the front of my dress, red wine no less. The woman was apologetic, and I didn't think much of it at the time. I changed into a backup outfit I had just in case, but I started to notice other strange things. Whispers, glances, a couple of guests excusing themselves early with awkward smiles. Then someone asked me quietly if I was okay. "Of course," I said, puzzled. "Why wouldn't I be?" She just shook her head and muttered, "People are saying things." That was when Matt came rushing up to me, face pale, phone in hand. "Did you post this?" he asked, holding up a screenshot of what looked like my social media account. My stomach dropped. It was a post under my name with a sonogram picture and a caption that read, "Trapped him with a baby. Step 1 complete." My heart pounded as I stared at the image. "Matt, I swear I didn't write that. That's not even my account." He believed me immediately. But the damage was spreading fast. Someone had made a fake account pretending to be me, and they'd shared the post publicly, tagging several of Matt's friends and even some of his coworkers. Rumors were already flying. I felt sick. My hand shook as I tried to breathe through it. Courtney was watching me from across the yard, smirking behind her glass of wine. It hit me then. This was her doing. Who else would go to such lengths to make me look like a gold digger, a manipulator, a liar? But I couldn't prove anything. Not yet. Matt put his arm around me, glaring at the people who were whispering and shaking their heads. "We're leaving," he said, leading me toward the house. But before we could step inside, someone screamed from the kitchen, and we ran in to see what had happened. What we saw turned everything upside down. In the kitchen stood Dan, Courtney's husband, holding up a smashed phone and shouting, "You psycho! What is wrong with you?" he yelled. Courtney stood in the corner, frozen, face pale as all the color drained from her cheeks. Several guests had followed us in, and the room was full of stunned silence. "I saw her," Dan yelled, pointing at Courtney. "I caught her making that fake account on her phone. She had it all planned out. The wine spill, the post, everything." My mouth dropped open, and Matt looked at his sister like he didn't even recognize her. "You did this?" he asked, barely audible. Courtney tried to lie, of course. "It was just a joke. I didn't mean anything by it," she insisted, laughing nervously. People take things too seriously these days. But no one was laughing. Dan looked like he was about to explode. "I'm done, Courtney. You humiliated yourself. You humiliated me. You could have destroyed their family. And for what? Because you're jealous?" He turned to Matt and me and said, "I'm so sorry. I had no idea she was capable of this." Courtney lunged at him, trying to grab the broken phone from his hand, but several guests stepped between them. Someone called the police and things escalated quickly. She screamed and fought, knocking over a table and scratching one of the guests. The officers showed up within minutes, and she was handcuffed and escorted out of the party, still shouting that she wasn't the villain. Matt stood beside me in stunned silence, watching his sister disappear in the back of a squad car. The crowd slowly thinned. Guests left murmuring in disbelief, and what had started as the happiest night of our lives had turned into something out of a drama series. But strangely, I felt peaceful. Exposed, yes. Shaken, definitely. But the truth had come out, and in a way, Courtney had done us a favor. She showed everyone exactly who she was. The aftermath was chaotic, both externally and internally. The following morning, Matt and I sat in silence at the kitchen table, sipping lukewarm coffee as the previous night played over and over in our minds. The police had taken Courtney in on charges of harassment, identity fraud, and disturbing the peace. Dan stayed behind to talk with us for hours. He was crushed, not just by what Courtney had done, but by how long he had ignored the red flags in their marriage. "She's always needed control," he told us, eyes rimmed red. But last night, that wasn't just drama. That was sabotage. He had already packed a bag and decided to stay at his brother's place. The weight of his words hung in the air. He was done with her. It was strange to feel a mix of relief and grief at the same time. I didn't want anyone's marriage to fall apart, but Courtney had crossed a line that couldn't be undone. Social media was already buzzing, and even though Matt quickly posted from his verified account to clear things up, some people had already taken sides. A few of his coworkers messaged him privately, expressing support and disbelief over the lengths his own sister went to. My own family, who hadn't been at the party, called in concern. I reassured them I was okay, though emotionally I felt like I was swimming through fog. Matt never left my side. He brought me water, made sure I rested, and reminded me that none of this was my fault. But there was something raw in his eyes, something broken. His sister had tried to ruin the happiest moment of his life, and it hurt. We spent the day reaching out to those who'd attended, making sure the truth was known. Most people were kind and supportive, but the betrayal lingered. We had been vulnerable, trusting, and excited to share our joy, and someone had taken that and weaponized it. Still, as I felt the flutter of our baby moving for the first time that evening, I realized something powerful. This child would grow up surrounded by honesty, love, and the strength of people who protect what truly matters. Not lies, not jealousy, not manipulation. And in that moment, I finally let myself breathe. As the week unfolded, the shock slowly began to wear off, replaced by a strange mix of emotional exhaustion and quiet clarity. Courtney remained in custody for 2 nights before being released on bail, and her lawyer immediately advised her to lay low, but the damage was already done. Dan officially filed for divorce, citing emotional abuse and public defamation as part of his reasoning. When the papers were served, she tried to spin it all as a misunderstanding, telling anyone who would listen that it was blown out of proportion. But few were buying it anymore. Even Matt's parents, who had always been reluctant to see Courtney's flaws, couldn't deny what had happened. His mom called us, her voice thick with sadness. "I don't know who she's become," she said, "but what she did to you both, it's inexcusable." That call meant a lot to Matt. He needed to know that even within his own family, there were lines that couldn't be crossed. Meanwhile, I focused on staying healthy, mentally and physically. I started journaling daily, trying to process the whirlwind of events, while Matt and I went on long walks in the evenings to talk things out. There was healing in the simplicity of those moments, holding hands, watching the sunset, whispering baby names we liked. We even found humor in small things again, like when Matt jokingly suggested naming the baby Justice after everything that had happened. It felt good to laugh. Our friends stood by us too. A few even confessed that they'd never liked Courtney's energy but didn't want to create drama before. Now, they rallied around us like a protective circle. One evening, as we hosted a small dinner with our closest friends, I realized just how blessed we still were. Betrayal hurts, especially when it comes from family, but sometimes it clears the air. It shows you who genuinely loves you, who's in your corner, and who is only pretending. Courtney's actions were cruel, calculated, and destructive, but in trying to tear us down, she ended up exposing herself. What was meant to be a night of humiliation for me turned into a spotlight on her ugliness. And the best part? I didn't have to lift a finger to fight back. The truth did all the work for me. In the weeks that followed, Matt and I embraced a quieter, more grounded routine. The chaos that Courtney stirred up left behind an odd kind of stillness, like a storm that uprooted everything fake and left only what was real. Matt poured himself into work, but not in the way people do when they're avoiding pain. He did it with purpose. He spoke to HR at his company and clarified everything about the fake account post, just in case there were lingering questions. His bosses were incredibly understanding, and a few even reached out personally to congratulate us on the baby and apologize for any discomfort the incident may have caused. Meanwhile, I attended my prenatal checkups and focused on growing this little human inside me. My OBGYN noticed I was a bit tense during one visit and encouraged me to start prenatal yoga, which turned out to be a beautiful decision. It gave me a space to reconnect with my body and mind, and reminded me to celebrate the miracle unfolding within me instead of dwelling on someone else's dysfunction. At home, Matt and I decorated the nursery together, painting walls a soft sage green and assembling the crib on a Saturday afternoon. I remember sitting on the floor afterward, watching him tighten the last bolts, thinking how lucky this baby would be to have such a father. We talked about boundaries too, how this baby would grow up in a home where emotional manipulation had no place, where family didn't mean blind acceptance of toxic behavior. We made a pact that night, lying in bed, hands on my growing belly. We'd always choose peace, even when others chose chaos. Matt's parents came by the next day with a box of old baby clothes Matt had worn, including a tiny knitted sweater his grandmother had made. His mom teared up as she placed it in my hands. "I'm so sorry for what Courtney did, but this baby is the fresh start we all need." I believed her. And in that moment, with all the mess behind us and a future of new beginnings ahead, I realized that Courtney hadn't just failed to humiliate me. She'd helped us build an even stronger foundation for our growing family. By the time my third trimester began, the dust from the entire ordeal had fully settled. Courtney had moved out of state, staying with a distant cousin, and was awaiting a court date for the charges pressed against her. Dan kept in touch with us occasionally, mostly to share updates or ask how I was doing. He seemed like a new man, lighter, more focused, and eager to start over. "Leaving her was the hardest and best decision I ever made," he told us one day during a coffee meetup. As for Matt and me, we finally found joy again in the small things. Our home was filled with the quiet buzz of anticipation, late-night baby name debates, shopping trips for onesies and pacifiers, reading parenting books side by side on the couch. We even took a short baby moon weekend getaway to a lakeside cabin, just the two of us, where we spent our time cooking simple meals, going on walks, and just talking, really talking, about the kind of life we wanted for our family. We agreed on so much more than I realized. No secrets, no guilt-driven loyalty to toxic relatives, and a future where our child would never feel caught in the crossfire of someone else's insecurities. Matt had grown so much through this process. The betrayal by his sister hurt deeply, but instead of shutting down, he became even more emotionally available. He asked questions about how I was feeling, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally. He'd hold my belly at night and talk to our baby in a soft, goofy voice that made me laugh and cry at the same time. One night, after reading a chapter from a parenting book, he turned to me and said, "You know, I used to think strength meant pushing things down. But watching you handle all this, the grace, the patience, I've learned that strength is vulnerability. It's showing up anyway." That meant more than he knew. I'd spent weeks second-guessing myself, wondering if I could handle motherhood, but in that moment, I felt seen. We may have had a rocky start to this pregnancy, but we'd weathered the storm and come out not just intact, but stronger, anchored to each other, and to something greater than the chaos that tried to tear us apart. As our due date crept closer, I found myself reflecting more often, not just on the past few months, but on the kind of mother I hoped to become. There had been moments I doubted myself, moments where Courtney's cruelty had made me feel small, insecure, even unworthy. But every day since had proven that love, honesty, and resilience had far more power than pettiness and manipulation ever could. Matt and I had grown into each other even more during the final stretch. He began attending every doctor's appointment, holding my hand tightly during every scan, whispering words of encouragement as we watched our baby's heartbeat flicker across the screen. He'd rearranged his entire work schedule to be home earlier in the evenings, making dinner most nights and rubbing my back when the fatigue got too heavy. The nursery was finally complete, sunlight spilling in over soft curtains, tiny clothes neatly folded in drawers, a mobile of stars and clouds gently spinning above the crib. It felt like a symbol of everything we'd built through the storm, a place of peace, of promise. One evening, we had a small gathering with just our closest friends, a sort of pre-baby celebration that was everything the original party hadn't been. Intimate, genuine, full of laughter and support, no drama, no tension, just warmth and shared joy. They brought little gifts and notes of encouragement, reminding me that this journey, though rocky, had brought us to a place of strength and community. Dan came too, standing quietly in the kitchen with a soft smile, holding a small stuffed elephant for the baby. "You two gave me courage," he said as he hugged me goodbye. "You reminded me what love's supposed to feel like." That hit me deeply. I hadn't set out to be anyone's example, but somehow by staying true to ourselves, we'd inspired someone else to seek better, too. That realization filled me with quiet pride. Courtney hadn't just lost control of her narrative, she'd lost her audience. People saw her clearly now, and they chose kindness, truth, and love instead. And as I stood by the window that night, watching the stars blink to life above our quiet neighborhood, I felt a kind of peace I hadn't known in months. This was our story now, not hers. The day our baby finally arrived was nothing short of magic. After hours of labor, sweat, and a few tears, I heard the first cry. A strong, clear sound that cut through everything and immediately filled my heart with a warmth I can't describe. Matt was by my side the entire time, his hand gripping mine, eyes full of emotion. When the nurse placed our daughter on my chest, it felt like the universe paused for a second. All the chaos that had led to this moment, the pain, the betrayal, the storm, was gone, washed away by the arrival of something pure and whole. We named her Elise Grace, a name we had chosen weeks ago that felt even more perfect now. As she lay against me, tiny fingers curling instinctively, I knew we had made it. We had taken every blow Courtney tried to land and turned it into fuel. Fuel to love harder, stand taller, and protect our peace at any cost. The hospital room was quiet later that night, just the three of us. Matt cradled Elise in his arms, his eyes shimmering with tears he didn't bother to hide. "You've changed everything," he whispered to her. "You made me see what matters." In the following days, messages poured in. Friends, co-workers, even distant relatives, all sending congratulations and well wishes. No one mentioned Courtney anymore. She had faded into the background, her relevance swallowed by the overwhelming light our daughter brought with her. Dan visited us at home a week later, holding Elise with a mix of awe and regret. "She deserves better than Courtney as an aunt," he said quietly. We didn't argue. We all knew that chapter was over. Elise would grow up surrounded by people who loved with intention, who believed in second chances, but not at the cost of self-respect. Matt and I often talked about the lessons we'd teach her, about boundaries, about grace, about standing tall in your truth even when others try to knock you down. We'd built something strong from something ugly. And now, as I rocked Elise to sleep in the nursery we had lovingly prepared, I realized the story wasn't just about surviving a betrayal. It was about creating something beautiful in spite of it. And that, more than anything, was the true ending Courtney never saw coming.